Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for the reading. Yeah, I picked that reading, but I didn't do it like that. That was great.
I've been a minister speaker and listening to
There you go. There you go. I had to look up when you sat down to see if you said that right, and you did. Something about not arrogant, but not humble. I didn't think there was anything wrong with being humble, is there? I don't know. Well, let's rewrite that, but that's other than that. Very good. So this month we're talking about the ultimate power tools, and last week Reverend Debbie talked about enthusiasm and how that's one of the tools that we can use. Emma Curtis Hopkins was a teacher of Ernest Holmes, and she knew a thing about power tools too, and she said, we have unlimited power. If we do not use that power, it doesn't alter the fact that it is our inheritance. You know, I remember reading that Ernest Holmes says, you know, we live in a sea of this power, or a sea of possibilities, whatever he called it. How much of that is available to you? As much as you can use. It's ours for the taking. We talked about that a little bit like that in our Circle in Prison on Tuesday night, about living in a sea of possibility, and how, you know, we got all kinds of possibilities we can take advantage of. So we talked about enthusiasm last week, and this week the title is The Power of Faith Rightly Placed. Now, our faith is either the source of our power or it's the cause of our distress. And depending on what you have faith in, so faith rightly placed. Holmes says that it's been said there's one big fear, the fear that God will not answer our prayers. And so we fear things. We fear lack, and we fear loss of friends, loss of properties, loss of money. We fear that we'll lose our way, fear our kids will be in trouble, all kinds of fears. So what is this fear? Fear is nothing more or less than the negative use of faith, faith misplaced. We've always got faith, but where are we going to put that faith? What are we going to put our faith in? Holmes says to correct all the evils of the world would be but to have faith rightly placed, a faith that lays hold of the beneficence of God, the unity of all life, and the integrity of the universe, the beneficence of God. You know, a lot of us weren't raised in that kind of assurance. You know, I was raised knowing that God was looking over me and making sure that I didn't do those bad things. So, you know, Dee was reminding me this morning of one of her sisters who had nightmares about hell. Till she met was it a Methodist or a Presbyterian who said, our God is a loving God in our church. So she switched church. So, to correct all evils of the world, Holmes says, would be but to have faith rightly placed, a faith that lays hold of the beneficence of God, the unity of life, the integrity of the universe. So we've all got plenty of faith, but what is that faith in? You know, we can have faith in lack, we can have faith in limitation, faith in sickness, faith in failure, faith. You know, where do you put your faith? So that's misplaced faith. So where is well-placed faith? Well, of course, it's in God. And there's a story about a young Jewish girl, and she's bringing her fiance home to meet her parents. And the mother says to the dad, now after dinner, you take this guy into the study and you have a little schnapps with him and see what he's all about, you know, check him out. So he goes into the study, this kid, and he says, so son, what are your plans? And the kid says, I'm a Torah scholar. And the guy said, well, that's admirable that you're a Torah scholar, but how are you going to buy a nice engagement ring for my daughter, a ring that she deserves? The guy says, well, I'll study and God will provide. Okay? And then he says, how are you going to give her a nice house like she's accustomed to living in? I'll concentrate on my studies, and God will provide. And children, how will you support your children? Don't worry, sir, I'll study, and God will provide. And conversation goes on and on like this. God will provide. And so a little bit later, the mom and dad are talking, and the mother says, well, how did it go? And the guy says, well, I got bad news and I got good news. The bad news is he has no job and no plans. The good news is he thinks I'm God. So somewhere in here is faith misplaced. So I never liked, and ministers like to talk about faith. That's a favorite subject. I've never liked that. I've never liked that word, faith, because where I came from, faith meant shut up. Don't ask questions. Don't be curious. Really, you got a real shut down if you started being curious about what you were being taught. I didn't like that. Now, in Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes tells us be open at the top. He said everything's going to change. You're going to evolve. I mean, what a refreshing, for me, what a refreshing way to look at our spiritual ideas. So today we're going to look at this is a different way to look at faith. So we're going to have 3 points. Faith in the idea that the universe is conspiring for our good. How nice is that? Oh, I love that idea. Just love that idea. Number 2, faith in the workings of the law. Well, look at here. We got this is the teaching symbol for Science of Mind. And the law is this middle part. You know, you can call that top part. That's where we set our intentions. That's our conscious mind. We can call that the master. You know, we're the ones that are in charge of what goes on. The middle part we could call the law, subconscious mind, or we could call it the soil, because you take that seed thought that we have in the top part, plant it in that middle part, the law, which is the soil, and voila, you get the effect. This is the outpicturing in your life. So that we can have faith in. That works. And I think Ernest Holmes has said that's all we're selling. Yeah, that's it. You get this, you can go home. This is how it works. It works in your life. If you practice it, it's amazing. So, and then number 3 is faith in ourselves, and that's the reading that Joan did this morning. There is a perfect power within each of us, and we can have faith in that. You know, not faith in our little self, but faith, you know, like when I come to talk to you on a morning like this, I like to say, little self, just take the back seat right now. That ego part of me, I mean, it's helpful. It kind of keeps you out of the way of the Mack trucks and, you know, takes care of you. But for now, take a back seat and let that God self, let that perfect power within take over. And I think so these are the points. So the first point is faith in the idea that the universe is conspiring for our good. Ernest Holmes said, there's a power for good in the universe, and it's greater than you, and you can consciously use it. And Emma Curtis Hopkins, who was one of his teachers, said, how sure people are to come out right who have a strong, honest confidence that they will come out right. You know, if you believe you're going to come out right, you're going to come out right. Keep your thoughts positive and constructive. There was a minister in our circles named Johnny Coleman She founded a church in Chicago that Fancy Ray, I don't know, did you visit it too, Tani? In Chicago, it's called, is it still called Christ Universal Temple? Anyway, she founded that, and she was a minister, I think, for 40 years. She died at age 94 in 2014. And for 40 years, she taught God's desire for everyone is absolute good. Well, that's a message I didn't get until I got into this movement. And God's idea for us is absolute good. The way she started out, she had do you know what her incurable disease was, Debbie? Everywhere I read, it said that this Johnny Coleman began her healing journey. She was diagnosed with an incurable disease, and I could never put my finger on what that disease was. I don't know why they didn't say it, but it was in the early 1950s. And she decided to change her prognosis from having 6 months to live to living a long life. In her mind, that's what she did. And she turned away from the condition, and she turned toward the idea that God's desire for her was absolute good, which included a long, healthy life. And she indeed lived that life and used that miracle of healing to really, I think, uplift her and help her to share this with other people. She wrote, God knows nothing of arthritis, diabetes, cancer, tuberculosis, AIDS. Resolve this moment to pray for elimination of these illusions from the minds of all men and women, thus eliminating them from the bodies of humankind. It sounds like Emma Curtis Hopkins, doesn't it? I mean, just like, here's the deal, guys. She's so sure of herself. There's a story about this eccentric professor, speaking of illusions. And he had been teaching this class all kinds of topics, and the exam was going to be a one-question exam. And he takes his chair and he puts it up on his desk, and he writes on the board, using everything we have learned this semester, prove that this chair does not exist. Don't you love tests like that? So they're sitting, all these kids are sitting with their paper and pencils, and they're just remembering, oh, what did we learn? And they're writing down all this stuff and erasing it and starting over and writing, and some of them are writing like pages and pages. They got an hour to do this, but one member just took about a minute, wrote something down and left. And so weeks later, when the grades were posted, they noticed that this is the kid that got an A. They thought, how could he get an A? He hardly wrote anything. His answer, remember what the question was, using everything we've learned this semester, prove this chair does not exist. And his answer was, what chair? So Johnny Coleman would say, what arthritis, what diabetes, what cancer, what heart disease? You know, everything in spiritual truth, these things do not exist. There's some perfection within each and every one of us. That's spiritual truth. Years ago, when D. Ray and I were first putting our toes in this philosophy, I made a tape, a cassette tape. This was when they had these cassette tapes that you could push play, stop, rewind, like that. It was very simple. And so I recorded some really, what I thought was very inspirational stuff from Science of Mind, some poems, I don't know what else I put on there, but I listened to the tape, and I must have shared it with Dee, and she asked me to give her a copy of that tape, which I did. And she played hers until it fell apart, and I did too. And so we don't know how to replace it. So that's our burden to bear. So one of the things I wrote on there that I remember, because I listened to it so often, is a quote from Ernest Holm from his book, Science of Mind. He says, when we learn to trust the universe, we shall be happy, prosperous and well. We must learn to come under the divine government and accept the fact that nature's table is always filled. Never was there a cosmic famine. God is always God. No matter what our emotional storm or what our objective situation may be, there is always something hidden in the inner being that was never violated. Isn't that just powerful? Something in our inner being that was never violated. We may stumble, but always there is that eternal voice forever whispering within our ear, that thing which causes the eternal quest, that thing which forever sings and sings. Ernest says, this is the thing itself. So remember, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And I think that's kind of what he was talking about. There's something in us that is perfect, whole, and complete. So faith rightly placed is knowing that spiritual substance is all around us waiting to be formed. You know, I should have a thing made of my iron refinery. You know, I tell you this story, I know you get tired of it, but there's people here who've never heard it. So wouldn't it be nice if we had a slide with the iron refinery, iron foundry, you've got a vat. In the vat, you put the solid pig iron, you build a fire under that vat, you melt that pig iron until it's liquid. Then in this foundry, they're trying to make something, so they've got molds. Okay, let's say they want to make a gear of some sort. They take that liquid then and pour it in the mold, okay? Now, if we kind of do this metaphysically about our lives, all we have to do is make the mold. We don't have to make the vat, we don't have to make the pig iron, we don't have to make the fire, we have to make the mold. And what does that mean? That means, what are my intentions? What is it that I want in my life? They wanted a gear in the iron foundry. What if I want a healed relationship? What if I want a healed part of my body? What if I want financial abundance? Whatever it is. If we could use this, how much greater our lives. And the more we use it, and the more we see the outcome of using this philosophy of making that mold, setting our intention, the more easily it's going to be to do next time. Next time you come up against a challenge that you think, oh my gosh, this is the biggest thing, I don't know how I'm ever going to do it. Think back about the last time you created an intention in that mold and how it came to fruition because you turned it over to your higher power. And the more we do it, the easier it is to live a life free of concerns. Coleman says, God knows nothing of arthritis, diabetes, cancer. These are all illusions. And we know that we can use these molds to change whatever is going on in our life. The universe is conspiring for our good. So my suggestion is make that mold. Use that mold. Put something in that mold. So faith that the universe is conspiring for our good. That was my first point. The second point is faith in the workings of the law. And this is where this comes into play, because this is how that works, the workings of the law. Our thought seeds, the top part, goes into that middle part, which is the law, or we might call those thoughts seeds going into the soil, and then the form or effect. That's how that works. The law is absolute, and we should trust its impersonal action implicity. Impersonal. That kind of bothered me when I first heard this language. Why is God impersonal? Well, it's like the soil is impersonal. The farmer plants a corn seed and he's not going to get a watermelon. If he plants peas, he's not going to get radishes. When we plant seeds of hatred or revenge or something, guess what? We're not going to get roses. We're going to get a life that depicts that those negative feelings we have. So the idea is to keep our thoughts positive and constructive. Think about what you want. Intentionally plant those thought seeds. And most people obviously don't do that. They're you've been there, right? We've all been there. Our thoughts just go all over the place. It's like a farmer with his seeds. If he takes those seeds and he's just strewing them all, he doesn't care if they land in the water or on a rock. He's not thinking about that fertile soil where he needs to plant those seeds. And this is what we have to think about too. When keep your thoughts positive and constructive. So when was the last time that you really did this, that you said, okay, I'm going to sit down right now, I'm going to state that intention. I'm going to get that mold. I'm going to put something. What do I want to put in that mold? Could be a healed relationship, could be a relationship with your boss or somebody in your family. The more we turn to Source for daily assistance, for guidance, the more we tune into this universal good, and the better our lives are going to be. Just have to remember to do it. We are surrounded by a law which is creative. It responds to our thought. It doesn't reason. Remember, this middle part doesn't say, oh, no radishes, we really need sunflowers. Whatever we put in there, it responds to our thought. It doesn't reason. It responds only to our thought. So important. Keep a lid. And we have control over our thoughts. And some people will say, oh, no, I don't. Well, you do. I remember Gary used to say, isn't it funny how these guys that beat up on their wives, well, I couldn't help it, I just lost it, I just snapped. Well, they don't snap in the bar when they're up against some 6-foot guy. They don't snap then. They snap at home with their 5-foot wife. We have control over our thoughts. We really do. And so that's faith in the workings of the law. Okay, number 2. Number 3 is faith in ourselves, what Joan read about. We are extensions of the Creator of everything. We talk about that. There is a power within us, that power that created everything. And Holmes has a beautiful verse in there about the same power that created all the moonbeams, whatever, is the power within each of us. We have that power within us, and we can use that power. You are an individualized extension of God itself. You have access to all the energy. Like Holmes says, how much energy, how much of that can you take? All of it. Whatever you can manage to accept is yours. There's no limit to it. Meister Eckhart, who's a German mystic in the late 1200s, said, there is nothing else a man can do that is so beautiful as to put complete trust in God. God never failed anyone who trusted him greatly, but rather through him, God does great things. That was Meister Eckhart many, many years ago. So this faith in that higher power, that it is within us, can change a lot of stuff. So just a little recap. Universe is conspiring for your good. You might recall that a lot of times when I end a spiritual mind treatment, I release this to that beneficent conspiracy. Beneficent, kind, wants to do good. Conspiracy, I love that. Sometimes I have to go so far as to think, what if it's my parents? What if it's Steve? What if it's Gary? What if they're hearing my prayer and they know that I've got a need and I'm hurting for some reason? I don't know how it works, but the point is I can let go of it because I'm thinking of there's a conspiracy going on and something in the unknown is working on my behalf. Beneficial conspiracy. And then the absolute workings of the law, plant that seed, make that mold, and then you are an expression of the divine. Have faith in yourself. Through each of us, God can provide great things. So a little homework might be to think about, make that mold for yourself. Set an intention. And that puts me in mind of one of my favorite Bible verses, and that's Malachi 3:10, where it says, "Test me and see if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour out such a blessing for you, you don't have room to store it all." Paraphrasing a little. I mean, isn't that lovely? You know, think about that for homework. What's going on in your life? Where would you like to test God? Tells us to do that. I do it, and I have not yet been struck down by lightning. And there are times when I have really felt that at the end of this, that God is having a chuckle. God, however that looks, whatever's going on up there, there is something going on behalf. And I think sometimes that spirit is getting a chuckle. I see it as my prayers are answered. Like, this is so easy. Why don't you do this more often? You know, why don't you bring these challenges in prayer more often? So that I would suggest, think about what in your life can you claim today? And then there's a poem I'd like to share with you that'll just remind you of how this works. Doubt sees the obstacles. Faith sees the way. Doubt sees the darkest night. Faith sees the day. Doubt dreads to take a step. Faith soars on high. Doubt questions who believes. Faith answers, I. So if you would just take a deep breath and join me as I do a spiritual mind treatment, which is an affirmative prayer regarding these words that we've heard, the music, and all the good stuff. So I know there is that one power in the universe that has the perfect solution to any perceived problem in life. And I know that power is peace and love and joy. It's balance. It's abundance, order. It's all good. And I am one with it. That very power that created everything experiences life in, through, and as its creation. And even though I have sometimes forgotten that the universe, God, is conspiring for my good, I feel like I'm up against it, even though I've felt that at times. And sometimes I've not relied on the law to carry out my seed thoughts. I got doubts. And even though I sometimes have forgotten that I'm an extension of the power that created everything and everyone, even though all that, I now set an intention to remember that the universe conspires for my good. I trust the law works as my servant. I'm the master, my words are the master, the law is the servant. And I remember I'm an extension of the power that created everything and everyone. And in gratitude that this is the law of life, I release these words to the beneficent conspiracy for perfect manifestation. So it is.